again, we teach traditional Wu style Tai Chi. The third system is the Yat Hei system. That's how it fits in. The three systems combined is called Fu Hoc Tai Hei Morn. It's a system that was developed by my teacher, and we have those three systems housed within that one house or door, mainly because it's to commemorate the three styles that we teach. Since my teacher had passed, I've expanded into bringing some of the modern styles in and a bit of wushu, but the thing is, it's mainly because we have to capture an audience, and these different audiences have different interests. So Yat Hei Morn is a system that was taught as the third system of our system. So people would start off in the Kung Fu as Hongga or Hongken, and if you was interested in Tai Chi, you would just go directly into Tai Chi. And it's a funny thing that some of the people have cross-trained, so they do both. All of our instructors do all three. Now, all three, because Yat Hei Morn is very unique in the sense of the way it's practiced and the style. It's a sister system to Tai Chi. It's from the Wu Tang mountain, so it's a system that's been around for a long time. So recently, maybe 10 years ago, our Grandmaster Hansen Ma, who resides in Hong Kong, has brought the system back. He's the son of Madak's son, who is actually the person that taught my teacher, and also the person that was the inheritor of the system from a monk who her name was Sut Wei Lan. And Sut Wei Lan was the inheritor of the system from her dad, who developed or taught and practiced different styles of the internal systems. So Yat Hei Morn was passed down by this woman. Madak-san's teacher was a woman. She was a nun who practiced in the arts and had to survive after her dad was killed during the Japanese invasion back in the 40s. So Yat Hei Morn, as I say, is a sister system to Tai Chi. So we have different training methods within the system, and all of the methods that are from the Yat Hei Morn and the theories from the Hongga and Tai Chi are, not combined, but we see at the higher level the resemblance of the theory and principles. So we use Yat Hei Morn as one of the guidelines, but they have their own forms. They have their forms that produce positioning. They're very direct and linear, and then we have longer forms in it that are more like Tai Chi, more fluid, more flowing. And the highest form is the form called Yat Hei Chun Jin. It's the unification of the movements, and behind Yat Hei Morn's system is that last form. It's really not practiced by many people, but it is our most advanced form in the Yat Hei Morn style. So what do? We actually do a bunch of drills. We stand in a shoulder width position, and we do a bunch of drills. I'm just going to do a few of them, just so that you get a sample. I did a few last week, and it's just done like this. Okay, hands, lower hoop, as I say. So this extend, and the hand goes down, extend, the hand goes down. So that's kind of a sample of the exercise. The goal with those exercises, learn how to use your strength. It's really getting the energy of the movement to the very fingertips, because all your movements have to come from the ground up through the body and then end up as the power points, and whether it's your finger or your palm, all of these are part of that training. So while the Shaolin systems work with iron palm. We call ours cotton palm. So the movements are soft and the power is explosive. So, different types of training come into play when we practice the different traditional arts. So there's different types of energy, which is called ging. So, explosive power is fat ging. When you explode the movement or you release the power, it has to go to the end of the movement. So it's really exemplified in this style because it's done soft and it's done relaxed. So it's really not a conflict, it's just a different approach. So sometimes people think you need a lot of strength in your movement to create an action, but that's not necessarily true. So because Wu Tang is one of the internal arts, what's the most important in the internal arts? It's breathing and movement, breath and movement. So in Yat Hei Morn, the most important form for us is the fundamental form called Yat Hei Kun. And what we do in the form, and so anyone that's learning now has learned this, right? So everyone has this, but how do you define it? How do you perceive the movements to be? Okay, so we do this. That's one of the movements. And then this. These are movements. One unique thing about Yat Hei Morn is that the hands move in very intricate motions that are very small. And one of the things that the coordination between the upper body and lower body is emphasized, but yet it appears to be very simple, but it's very, very difficult to do. It's not a form or a style that's very expansive, and it's not very aesthetically pleasing, I would say, because it's not like the wushu or the big forms. It looks like it's just very direct and simple. So I'm going to just give you a demonstration of this form that we do. Okay. There's two starting methods. It could be like this or like this. Okay. So that's all there is. There's a sliding step. So our stance is measured like this. We practice it by just stepping. So if you're taking this class, you should practice these basic movements. Okay, so if you've been following the classes, now you can see where all the geometry of the positions come in. The 90-degree position, the square position, the turning of the body, the hooking of the foot, all of this stuff comes into play because those are transitions that we have actually in all styles, but not necessarily focused on or maybe even appreciated because everyone is more interested in the glamorous movements. So the thing is, these simple things are fundamentals. We learn them, we practice them, and we, use these movements to supplement our training throughout. So we also have this drilling. Now, in the internal systems, they have the bagua or patgua jiang, right? So you have this turning of the palm. So in Yat Hei Morn, we have essentially substances or movements from the different styles. So Bagua is in Yat Hei Morn. Hao style Tai Chi, Wu Hao Tai Chi is there. Kwak Ga Tiger is also inside our movements. So it teaches you great body mechanics and flexibility of the body. So this is important if you're doing any of the softer styles. Now, a lot of times our forms start like this. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. So this is a characteristic of many styles of martial art, but you can see that this inhalation and exhalation is a movement in our form, and a starting position like this as we have in Tai Chi. So you can see, the movements itself support many of the things that we do. So we have strum the lute in Tai Chi, but we actually have center line position in this. So when we have the center line, movements have to pass through our center. So this is something that a lot of us, should really understand over time, that Yat Hei Morn works off a center line. It also works off this narrow stance, and we move, whether it's this way, or this way, or this way. Okay. So one of the other things that's important in the Yat Hei Morn system is the 5 elements. The 5 elements kind of describe some of our movements. Hung Gar has also that, and 5 element, works with even in Tai Chi. They work off of the I Ching. So these are part of the philosophical parts of the training. But they use these ideas like yin and yang, hard and soft. All of these are a blend of those ideas. Okay. So just staying in a stationary position, we have the thrusting position, so you can get familiar with that. So, one of the reasons why I bring a lot of these things to the streaming is to get exposure. My grandmaster wants more exposure to the system so that he can keep it alive, and also to pass it on to the next generation. So this actually is a movement that we have. It's just like a chopping movement. We have this movement. We have this movement. We have this movement. We have this movement. So you can see those are our 5 element motions. And then we have, different types of punching. So the punching generally is loose. So that you can see that's part of how the power is developed and it reaches its end. So people that become well-versed in these drills and exercises and the forms, actually the body starts to translate those movements and then takes it into practically everything that you do. Because hard and soft have to be blended and balanced. So if you have only hard movement, it actually impedes the strength and power of your motion because it's too physical. On the softness side of it, if it's too soft, you have less structure or no structure. So you can't, it has to be this blend. So the structure integrity of the soft systems is critical, it's important. Because without this, the structure integrity of your position when it's not using the physical strength requires, the characteristics of skeletal positioning. So when we move, when we turn into a position, you have to have structure integrity of position. Without the structure, you really can't define your position. So anyone that has any experience or years in martial arts, you have to realize that how important that is. So a lot of styles that just worried about how it looks is actually not functional. The functionality move comes from working within the realm of your space. So when we reference our positions, when we punch forward, regardless of how we strike, we have to have the idea that the power comes out and then you align that movement to your body. So how that happens is really muscle memory. So Yuri-kun, or the style, is very focused on structure. So when we're in a position, it's very important how that looks. Now that's the position, but when you go into a position and you come up like this, the power becomes explosive. So letting it go from the body becomes part of that execution. So everything is sudden movement when you execute, but when you learn, it has to be done soft. It has to be done just like this. Then over time, the legs, the body form, because like anything else that we teach, we talk about the 5 coordinations: hand, eye, body, waist, and stance, right? Those 5 things are most important. The eyes always follow the hands, right? Body, how your body moves, whether it's in your Hung-Gar movements or the Tai Chi movements, your body has to be part of that movement to create the imagery. The imagery is the yin, the psi. All of this stuff has to come into play. And then the stance, the mabu, is the most important part of your training. You can't emphasize more how the power comes from the legs. The power has to come from the legs. You know, that's something my teacher focused on, and in Hung-Gar it's the same thing. You have stance work, you have your stance, you have the mabu, then you have the method. So the method is how you use your legs. So in Tai Chi it's like that, in this it's like that, and Hung-Gar it's like that. So just trying to draw everything together to one central idea, that everything works off your core foundation movements, which is developed as you can note from the different tutorials or classes you've followed. We have a series of exercises for Hung-Gar, Kung Fu. We have a series of exercises for Tai Chi. We have a series of exercises for Yat Hei. So this is the format. And then we have forms, and these form sequences specifically to Hung-Kun is their forms, Tai Chi is their forms, Yat Hei is their forms. When we pull it all together, we have a total concept. Yat Hei combined with the others produces Fu Hak Tai Mon's idea. And Fu Hak Tai Mon is really the culmination of all of these styles in one, but then you have to create, the single form that ties that all together. And that's a form that we do called Fun Fei Jiang, which is something that my teacher had developed as a blend of all of those styles. Okay. With that said, deep breathing, inhale, exhale. So this breathing exercise has come from Yat Hei. So when you see this exercise, you would realize that probably came from somewhere. So this is where it came from. And I don't try to say that it's specifically from Fu Hak Tai Mon. It's really from the Yat Hei. I learned it from my teacher, who learned it from his teacher. So that's where the transmission of the information has come from. So that's actually very important. If you're doing this in the Tai Chi class, okay, that's from Yat Hei. When we're doing the leg swings like that, this, or this, that's from Yat Hei. So many of our exercises actually come from this core style in itself, and it shows up when we do our exercises, and that's how we know that it's really, part of our training method. So, these exercises are very good. It's part of the Tai Chi paradigm. It's part of what we teach, and it's overall exercises that can support anything that you would do. But for us, it's specifically this kind of training, okay? So we also have the suspended stance, and we're in a position like this or like this, okay? We have that twisted stance, and we have this vertical stance. So vertical, that's actually the thrusting movement, and then back to here. So you can see that the stance work itself is critical. The alignment of the center line, your head should be straight, and your tailbone should be aimed toward the heel of the back foot. So you should be vertical like this. So this is your empty stance. Okay, when you step, you're like this. Okay. When you turn and you adjust, you're like this. When you twist, you're like this. Okay. So those are posturing. Now, in Tai Chi, they actually have this type of training too. It's for releasing. So actually, Suwelan, the nun that actually taught Maraksan, she was famous for throwing coins, believe it or not. Like in the movies, you see them throwing the coins. That was a real practice back in the day. So her throwing the coin. This is how Tai Chi people practice fajing as well. But it's actually a throwing of movement, releasing the power. So this is something to realize. A lot of this people have never seen before, mainly because back in the day people didn't really expose it as much. But as a mission to preserve and teach the traditional arts, at some point you have to release that information. And in today's environment, people don't have the patience to learn some of these traditional arts. So it does take a long time to develop. So, there's no reason to hide this type of information, because only the select few that have the patience to practice and develop it will be able to achieve with it. So hopefully any of this information will support any of the ideas or questions that you may have. At some point, maybe we can have a streaming video on, my experience and, what we've done over the years to sustain ourselves as a business, as a martial arts school, and see how our approach is, to see why we've been fairly successful as a traditional school to teach, the masses of people and to develop quality students with quality movement. And, that's something that can be maybe we can sit down and kind of throw some questions around and, get some of these ideas out to you as someone that's tuning in just as an interest. And there's some historical background to a lot of this. Things go back. Yat Hei, I started learning this in 1970. So you can imagine from 70 to now, same exercises, same drills. Actually, I've learned more over the years from, my teachers' teachers. My teacher had quite a few teachers over the years, but in the Yat Hei, he had one of the top disciples from Maraksan back in the early days, and there's a lot of information from him, because as generations pass on, or they teach the certain select few, that information is really something that could be lost in history. So, on that note, I think we have about 8 minutes now. So, with Yat Hei Morn, the exercise that we do, as I said, we have these exercises, and then that's done in the Tai Chi. Okay, and going over the drilling movement, we have this exercise. And we also have a shoulder exercise like this. Now, most of these exercises appear to be calisthenics, and in fact, most of our first 10 exercises appear to be calisthenics, but it's part of our training method. Everything is about loosening the joints. Loosening the joints and aligning our body. So the geometry of position that I teach really comes from the ideas that all the systems that are taught here work off of this geometry. So you have the triangle, the hoop, the square, and the directions of those movements. When we're in a position, the joint angle positions is how your bridge techniques become effective. The movement like this, or like this, we have all of these positions built into some of our forms, but we don't pay attention to them. And when we, work through the positions and release the tension in the joints, then your body will start to become more familiar and sensitive. So all of this stuff is, concepts and ideas, but you have to kind of take the information in, digest it, and then, you'll have your interpretation, and then you'll have your perception of what those movements should be. So just remember that your inhalation, exhalation, as you lift and exhale. In and out. In and out. Okay. And the first form that we talk about, it's called Yat Hei Kun. It's one breath form. As we interpret it that way. It's one breath form, so it is a form of Qigong, just like Tai Chi. It's breath and movement, breath and movement. So that's a term you hear a lot. The only thing is, with this, you're in motion. It's different from standing and doing a standing type breathing, which just cultivates circulation and energy. But the thing is, when you move, it requires one additional level, and that's taking the movement into the body and allowing it to develop a motor skill, which is actually, much more challenging, becomes functional, and it also becomes, integration of body, which is, I think, most essential for good circulation, and supports what I always say is movement is essential to life. So on that note, I think we're going to close it up. If you have questions, you can email or chat with us. If you like this, give us a thumbs up and subscribe so that we know who's actually following, so we know what type of content to release. Okay, we'll see you next week, or for this class anyways, and we have streaming tomorrow morning at 9:30.